Veronica Whitley. I'm a Homeworks by Precept consultant and homeschool mom here in Texas. Today, let's take a look inside of English 3. English 3 is made up of 180 lessons, which are covered over the course of 14 chapters. The chapters will alternate between writing instruction and grammar lessons. In the grammar chapters, your child will cover parts of speech like nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, and prepositions. In the writing chapters, your child will be introduced to the steps of the writing process: planning, drafting, proofreading, revising, and publishing. They'll have the opportunity to write poems, instructions, essays, book reviews, and even learn important study and research skills on their way to writing a research paper. Let's take a look at what comes inside of the English 3 textbook kit. Let's start by taking a look at parts 1 and 2 of the Teacher's Edition. There are 2 parts to the Teacher's Edition for English 3. Let's start by taking a look at part 1. Here we have the table of contents. You'll notice the introduction material, and then here's the table of contents for part 1. The table of contents for part 2 is also listed, but is grayed out because that will be covered in part 2 of the Teacher's Edition. And then here are some of the teacher resources that are available in the back of the Teacher's Edition. Like every BJU Press subject, English 3 is approached from a biblical worldview. In this course, your child will learn to look at communication in the realms of friendship, authority, work, celebration, and people. This chart will show you in which chapter each theme is addressed and how it is applied. The academic rigor page offers 3 points to consider when teaching English 3. One is the desired learning outcomes, or what you want your students to learn at the end of this course. Number 2 are the teaching and learning supports, or how you will help your children to learn these things. Then you have a list of different ways that you can utilize to help communicate these lessons to your child. And then under number 3, evidence of understanding, you have a list of ways to assess what your children have learned in this course. The panorama of academic rigor will help you to look at your learning environment, your role as the teacher, and to consider your child's learning experience and the tools that you'll utilize to create that. This page shows you what's included in the textbook kit. You've got your student work text, your 2 volumes of the Teacher's Edition, your assessments or tests, and the corresponding answer key. We'll be looking at all of these in this video. These next few pages will highlight different features of each chapter that we'll be looking at in this video. Here are the features of the grammar chapters and some of the features of the student work text, and then some of the features of the writing chapters. Here we have the lesson plan overview. Part 1 of the Teacher's Edition will cover chapter 1 through chapter 7 and lessons 1 through 92. Under each chapter, you'll see the title of the chapter, so you'll know if it is supposed to be a grammar chapter or a writing chapter. The lesson number is in this first column, followed by the pages that you'll need to look at in your Teacher's Edition and the pages that your child will need to complete in their work text. This column will show you the objectives for each lesson. You'll also want to take note of this little red box, which refers to a biblical worldview theme that's being addressed in that chapter or lesson. You might also notice that the chapters are color-coded. This is one of my favorite little visual cues that helps me to see, as I'm teaching the lesson, that my child and I are on the same page. You'll see the colored bands at the top of your Teacher's Edition pages as well. Let's take a look at a sample chapter. Chapter 3 is a grammar chapter, and we'll be learning about nouns in this chapter. Each chapter starts out with an introductory lesson. You'll notice a smaller version of your child's work text pages, and then a section that will introduce the biblical worldview themes and the skills that will be covered in each of the following lessons. The essential question is found on your child's work text page and can be used to help introduce both the biblical worldview themes and the skills to your child. The chapter notes section is extremely helpful. This section will give you a heads up about any special activities, lessons, or preparation that you might need to do prior to teaching any of the lessons. You might notice a little yellow note telling you where to find the different resources. In this case, it's telling you to find additional resources at Teacher Tools Online. As a homeschool parent, you have access to all of these resources in your parent account on the Homeschool Hub. Open up the English 3 course and click on the Course Resources tab to find them. Next, you'll look at the lesson focus, which can also be addressed when talking about the essential question. And then down here, you'll see the objectives for this lesson and chapter, as well as another section for teacher resources. In this case, we'll be looking at the noun song. Now again, you have a little note reminding you where to find these resources. The songs are located on the handbook pages, which can be found at the back of your teacher's edition. In this case, the noun song is on page 381. The majority of your lesson will be found in the margins of the teacher's edition. Well, this isn't intended to be used as a script that needs to be read word for word. These questions and the suggested answers can help you to gauge and determine whether or not your child is understanding the lessons. Each chapter starts with a language or literature link. The language link page will give your child a chance to interact with some of the skills that they'll be learning in the upcoming lessons. The work text section will give you the directions to help your child complete the work text pages for each lesson. Let's look at a sample grammar lesson. At the top of the page, you'll see the lesson number and the work text pages that your child needs to complete. You'll also see a smaller version of your child's work text pages. Not only do you have your teaching material in the margins, you'll also see on your child's work text pages that the answers are indicated in red. So the teacher's edition also serves as your answer key for each of your child's assignments. Over here, as we look at the lesson, you'll see the lesson focus, the lesson objectives, and then the teacher resources and preparation. The teacher resources can generally be found at the end of the teacher's edition or in your parent account on the Homeschool Hub. The preparation section tells you what materials or items you may need to gather or prepare ahead of time. The introduction section allows you to generate interest and discuss the new concepts with your child. The Teach for Understanding section offers several ways for you to teach these concepts. In some cases, you'll be modeling the lesson for the child, showing them what they'll be doing in their work text pages. In other cases, you'll be asking questions, and the suggested answers are here for you. If you see a question with a gear icon, that lets you know that this is a question that might require a little bit more analysis or evaluation on the part of your child. And then it will also give you some review questions. Again, over here, under the work text section, you'll see the instructions to help your child complete their daily assignments on their work text pages. You might see a blue box labeled Writing and Speaking. In this lesson, it's just labeled Writing. In yet another lesson, Speaking and Listening. And in this lesson, Writing, Speaking, and Listening. These boxes offer a great way to help your child apply these skills that they're learning. The differentiated learning section will give you ideas to help children who may be learning English as a second language, to help those children who may still be struggling with some of the concepts presented. It may give you enrichment ideas for kids who are more advanced and need a little bit more of a challenge. And the active learning ideas will give you ways to incorporate multiple learning styles into your lessons. We all have a preferred learning and teaching style, but we all learn best when we incorporate all of our senses and several different learning styles into our lessons. At the end of the Teacher's Edition, there's a section of teacher resources. Here we have a page to help you explain the gospel. The greatest desire for each Christian parent is to see their children come to know and love the Lord as their personal Savior. This is why we teach English. This is the why behind every subject that we teach. Familiarize yourself with this and be ready to answer the most important question your child will ever ask you. This page will give you some tips on teaching writing and grammar to your children. It will also help you with teaching speaking and listening skills and reviewing different concepts. This handbook is also in your child's work text and offers a thesaurus, capitalization rules, abbreviations, and this is also where you'll find the songs referred to in some of the lessons. You'll also notice that each section of the handbook is color-coded. It offers a thesaurus, which will give your child a list of synonyms that they can use in the proofreading and revising sections of the writing process. The capitalization rules are green and will help your child remember what needs to be capitalized and what doesn't. The yellow section is a list of abbreviations, days of the week, months, titles, and addresses. And then we have the songs. And then after the handbook, we have a section of instructional aids. These will also be called for in many of the lessons, and these can be reproduced for your personal use. You'll see down here at the bottom what instructional aid it is and which lesson it needs to be used with. The instructional aids at the end of Part 1 of the Teacher's Editions are only for the chapters and lessons covered in this Teacher's Edition. Part 2 will have its own set of instructional aids that will be called for in those lessons. And then at the end, you'll have the answer keys for the reproducible worksheets. And then at the end of the book, we have an index that is organized alphabetically by topic. Now let's take a look at Part 2 of the Teacher's Edition. Just like Part 1, we have the table of contents. The introductory material is very much the same, with the exception of the lesson plan overview. You'll notice that in this volume of the Teacher's Edition, the table of contents for Part 1 is grayed out, while the table of contents for Part 2 is listed here. You also have a section of teacher resources similar to Part 1. The worldview themes are here for you, as well as the academic rigor, the instructional materials, and the chapter features. In Part 2 of the Teacher's Edition, we'll take a look at a writing chapter. Here we have the lesson plan overview as well. Part 2 of the Teacher's Edition starts with Chapter 8. And you'll see all of the different chapters with the lessons, the Teacher Edition pages, and your students' work text pages, and the lesson objectives. Chapter 8 is a writing chapter. In this chapter, they're learning to write a book review. Once again, you have an introductory lesson at the beginning of each chapter. You have the introduction and the chapter notes, which will again give you a heads up on any special supplies or special activities or lessons that you'll need to be aware of. Once again, you'll see a smaller version of your child's work text pages. This chapter begins with a language link. The language link is just a sample of what your child will be doing in the upcoming lessons. In this case, it's a book review based on the book Jessie's Shoes by Beverly Lewis. And this will be used as a model throughout the following lessons to help your child understand what they need to do. Writing chapters will help your child work through the different phases of the writing process. After being introduced to the concept of a book review, your child will begin working on the first step of the writing process, planning. Your child's work text and the teacher's edition will help you to introduce a variety of different graphic organizers or ways to begin planning their writing assignment. The second step of the writing process is drafting. This is where your child will be asked to compose a first draft of their assignment. Revising is the third step in the writing process. The goal of this step is not to discourage your child, but to help them produce the best possible writing that they can. The revising checklist will help them to look for ways that they can improve. Next is the proofreading step. This step will help your child look for their mistakes and to correct them. It will also teach basic proofreading marks so they will be able to quickly identify mistakes and change them. The final step in the writing process is publishing. We're teaching them to do their work with excellence, to take into consideration the skills that they've learned so far and apply them to their writing. Many of the chapters will end with a reflection or journaling lesson, which will allow your child to think about the concepts and skills taught in the previous lessons from a biblical perspective. And then there's a cumulative review. Again, you have the answer key and the smaller version of your child's work text page here in the Teacher's Edition. Once again, moving to the back of the Teacher's Edition, similar to Part 1 of the Teacher's Edition, you'll see a section of teacher resources. The Gospel, English instruction, your version of the handbook in the back of your child's work text. The thesaurus is a great tool for those writing chapters. Again, the capitalization rules, abbreviations, and the songs. And then we have a section of instructional aids. While some of them will be the same as the instructional aids in Part 1, they will be specific to the chapters and lessons in Part 2 of the Teacher's Edition. You have your revising and proofreading checklists, rubrics for the writing assignments, and then worksheets that can be reproduced for your own family's use. At the very end, you'll have the answer keys for all of the worksheets in this back section of instructional aids. And then just like in Part 1, you have an alphabetized index by topic. Next, let's take a look at the student work text. This is the work text for English 3. It's 3 hole punched and the pages are perforated for easy removal should you want to take them out. I've always opted to leave our work text intact and I've never really had a problem with them falling apart, but I know there are different preferences and ways that people like to organize their child's assignments, so they've made it easy for you to organize and utilize these pages in whatever way works best for your child and your family. You'll also notice that the pages are color-coded. These color-coded corners will match the colors in the lesson plan overview in your Teacher's Edition. Here we have Chapter 3, which we looked at in the Teacher's Edition. You have the essential question and the language link. The boxes at the tops of the pages will give definitions for important terms, or they'll remind your child of important rules for using the various skills. They might also give some examples. Typically, there will be opportunities for teacher-guided practice and independent practice as well. We also looked at Chapter 8, Writing a Book Review. Here we have the language link, and then the work text pages will help walk your child through the steps of the writing process. planning, and then an opportunity for them to practice the skill themselves, drafting their book review with the steps of the writing process listed here, and then a space for them to write a draft. Here we have the revising step and an opportunity for them to rewrite their assignment. And then on the proofreading page, they'll see an example of proofreading and be able to practice using the proofreading marks in their own assignment. The self-monitoring boxes will help them to remember key things that they need to apply in each of their writing assignments. Here we have the proofreading checklist, and then an opportunity for them to write their final copy. Here's a reflection page where they can think about how they share their opinions in a God-honoring way and write a little bit about that. And then we have a cumulative review. At the back of the work text, there's a handbook. This contains a thesaurus, capitalization rules, abbreviations, and the songs that are referenced in several of the lessons. You'll notice that each of these sections is color-coded. Here's the thesaurus. The green is the list of capitalization rules. And then here, the yellow, we have abbreviations. And then here we have all of the different songs. So your child has their own copy when you reference it in the lessons. One of my favorite things about BJU Press English is the handbook of resources that they put at the end of the work text. I love that BJU Press has put these resources right there at our children's fingertips, because one of my goals in homeschooling my kids is not just to teach them information, but to teach them how to find that information when they need it. So I just wanted to share something that I have done for my children to make that handbook and those resources a little bit more accessible and visible. One of my favorite school supplies are these flags or tabs, and I like to use these to highlight that handbook in the back of the work text to make it a little bit more visible and user-friendly. Because if your kids are anything like mine, sometimes those resources, as great as they are, they're out of sight, out of mind. So this is just something that I do in our English work texts. I've used a tab and then these little smaller tabs to mark off the handbook at the back of the work text. I used pink to mark the start of the handbook because that's my third grader's favorite color. I've tried to color code the different sections with these tabs. I didn't have a purple one in this style, so we went with red. I love to do this at the beginning of each school year so that it's a reminder, it's bright, it's colorful, and it's a reminder to my kids that there's a resource there. This is just something that I've done to help my kids utilize the resources that have been made available to them. And then lastly, you'll also receive an assessment packet and the corresponding answer key. Now, we're not going to show these on camera just to maintain the integrity of the tests, but know that the white packet is the assessment packet. This will have all of the tests for you. And then the shrink-wrapped blue packet will have all of the answer keys for your tests.